From military uniforms to prison jumpsuits, 7 women who swore to serve became killers instead. A Naval Academy cadet murdered out of jealousy. An army wife plotted her husband's death for insurance money. Nazi guards earned the nickname Bloody Brigitte for their cruelty. Some are serving life sentences right now. Others were executed. One walked free for 50 years despite Holocaust crimes. Will covered jealous rages, acid-covered crime scenes, and concentration camp horrors. Drop your location and time in the comments, and stick around because one case involves a betrayal so calculated, even seasoned investigators called it the coldest they'd ever seen. 1. Diane Michelle Zamora. Diane Michelle Zamora was born on January 21, 1978, and seemed destined for greatness. At age 18, she was a high school honor student from Crowley High School in Texas, with dreams of becoming an astronaut. Her ambitions matched her achievements. She earned acceptance to the prestigious United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. Now, Diane met David Graham at a Civil Air Patrol meeting when both were just 14 years old, bonding over their shared military ambitions. Graham wanted to be a pilot and had secured admission to the U.S. Air Force Academy. By August 1995, after years of friendship, they began dating. Within a month, the teenage couple announced their engagement. Adrienne Jessica Jones was a 16-year-old sophomore at Mansfield High School, a beautiful, popular cross-country runner who ran track with David Graham. The two were teammates, nothing more. But David made a fatal decision in November 1995. He lied to Diane, claiming he'd had sex with Adrienne after giving her a ride home from a track meet. Here's the thing though, investigators later determined this sexual encounter never happened. Law enforcement stated the encounter was completely fabricated by Graham, possibly to make Diane jealous, but the damage was done. Diane became consumed with jealous rage, viewing Adrienne as a romantic rival. According to Graham's later confession, Diane gave him an ultimatum: kill Adrienne Jones or she would leave him or commit suicide. In the early morning of December 4th, 1995, David Graham picked up Adrienne Jones in Diane's car while she hid in the hatchback. Adrienne had received a phone call at exactly 10:45 p.m. on December 3rd and left her house, never to return. Graham drove her to a remote location near Joe Pool Lake in Grand Prairie, Texas. A violent struggle ensued. Diane emerged from the hatchback and struck Adrienne over the head multiple times with a dumbbell weight. When Adrienne broke away and tried to run, bleeding from her head wounds, Graham shot her twice, once in the left cheek and a second shot right between her eyes as he stood over her. Her body was found in an open field, face nearly unrecognizable. The case remained cold for 9 months until Diane began boasting about the murder to fellow midshipmen at the Naval Academy in August 1996. Academy officials notified authorities, leading to arrests. On February 17, 1998, after more than 6 hours of deliberations, a jury found Diane Zamora guilty of capital murder. Because the Jones family requested that prosecutors not seek the death penalty, Zamora received a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment with eligibility for parole after 40 years. She is currently incarcerated and will become eligible for parole in 2036. 2. Kemia Hassel. Kemia Hassel was a 22-year-old U.S. Army specialist stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia, assigned to the 1st Armored Brigade Combat Team, 3rd Infantry Division. She worked as a truck driver and had married fellow soldier Tyrone Hassel III, who served as a wheel mechanic in the same unit. The couple had a young son together, nicknamed Chunk, who was almost 2 years old. On the surface, they appeared to be a typical military family. However, while serving in South Korea, Kemia began a secret affair with Jeremy Cuellar, another soldier in their unit. The relationship deepened, and Kemia became convinced that Cuellar was her true love. Tyrone Hassel III was Kemia's 23-year-old husband and the father of her child. His family described him as someone who truly loved Kemia, giving her his last name and his complete devotion. His father said the victim truly did love her and was something to everybody he met. However, to Kemia and her lover Jeremy Cuellar, Tyrone represented an obstacle to their desired future. Well, investigators discovered that Kemia was motivated by both her affair and a substantial financial benefit, over $400,000 in life insurance and Army death benefits. His father later told Kemia in court, "To you, he was expendable, he was a check. A $400,000 check." Kemia and Jeremy Cuellar planned the murder for months while deployed in South Korea, communicating via Snapchat because they believed police wouldn't be able to trace the messages. Court documents revealed that Cuellar traveled to Michigan 4 times between December 19th and December 31st, 2018, attempting to execute their plan. On New Year's Eve 2018, Tyrone was staying with his father in St. Joseph Township, Michigan. While on leave, Kemia gave multiple updates to Cuellar about her husband's whereabouts. When Tyrone returned to the house with groceries, Cuellar ambushed him in the driveway and shot him multiple times. Then Kemia called 911, appearing emotionally distraught. 11 days after Tyrone's murder, police received an anonymous tip about Kemia's relationship with Cuellar. Both were arrested. On July 18th, 2019, after just over an hour of deliberation, a jury found Kemia Hassel guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. On August 29th, 2019, she was sentenced to mandatory life in prison without the possibility of parole. When given the chance to address the court, Kemia said nothing. Jeremy Cuellar pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 65 to 90 years in prison. 3. Ivette Gonzalez Davila. Ivette Gonzalez Davila was a 24-year-old U.S. Army specialist from Bakersfield, California, serving at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington. She entered the military in December 2004, underwent training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, before reporting to Fort Lewis in June 2005. In 2006, she was reassigned to the prestigious I Corps Honor Guard, representing the Army at ceremonial events. By all outward appearances, Davila was a dedicated soldier. However, beneath her military bearing lay a dangerous obsession. She had dated another soldier who ended their relationship, referring to her as a crazy stalker. This rejection would set her on a deadly path. Staff Sergeant Timothy Miller, 27, from Gardnerville, Nevada, was an operations room specialist with the 47th Combat Support Hospital. His wife, Sergeant Randy Miller from New Hampshire, was a lab technician. Both had served honorably in Iraq in 2006. The couple had a 6-month-old baby daughter named Cassidy. Now, here's where it gets twisted. Davila's ex-boyfriend was friends with the Millers, and as he pulled away from Davila, she clung to his friends, believing she could stay close to him through them. Prosecutors said Davila believed Randy Miller was having an affair with her ex-boyfriend, a claim investigators found no evidence to support. On the night of March 2008, Davila met the Millers at a Tacoma nightclub and went back to their Parkland home. Once inside, she shot Randy Miller twice in the head while she was in bed. When Timothy Miller was showering, Davila shot him 4 times. She then took the couple's baby, went to Home Depot, purchased muriatic acid, and returned to pour it over both bodies in the bathtub to get rid of them. Davila returned to her barracks with baby Cassidy and told another soldier she had hurt people bad. Davila was arrested and initially faced the death penalty. On August 23, 2010, she pleaded guilty to 2 counts of premeditated murder and 1 count of kidnapping to avoid capital punishment. On August 24, 2010, Colonel Stephen Henley sentenced the 24-year-old soldier to life in prison without the possibility of parole. When asked to address the court, Davila said everyone wanted to know why she killed 2 fellow soldiers, but I have no answers. No answer will ever be an excuse for what I did. Baby Cassidy was placed with Timothy Miller's mother. 4. Delilah Williams. Delilah Williams was married to U.S. Army soldier Naeem Williams, who was 34 years old at the time of the murder. The couple lived in family housing at Wheeler Army Airfield in Honolulu, Hawaii, where Naeem served. Delilah was stepmother to 5-year-old Talia Williams, Naeem's daughter from a previous relationship. During testimony, Delilah revealed a household of systematic abuse. She testified against her husband as part of a plea agreement with prosecutors. According to evidence presented at trial, she and Naeem beat Talia almost daily with belts in their hands during the 7 months the child lived with them in Hawaii. 5-year-old Talia Williams was Naeem's biological daughter and Delilah's stepdaughter. When Talia came to live with her father and stepmother, she entered a home where violence was routine. The abuse included punching Talia repeatedly, commanding her to eat her own feces, withholding food for days, and using duct tape to bind her from head to toe to a bedpost where she was whipped with a belt. Delilah recounted stomping on Talia, describing hearing a bone crack beneath her feet. On July 16, 2005, the beatings escalated to murder. In the hours preceding Talia's death, Naeem Williams struck a frontal blow to Talia so hard that it left knuckle imprints on the child's chest. Her head slammed backwards against the floor. Prosecutors described the fatal blow's force as devastating. Talia then appeared to have a seizure. Following the attack, Delilah cleaned the car that had blood in it, while Naeem vomited. Wait, here's something that makes it even worse. 5 months before her death, Child Protective Services at Schofield Barracks had been notified of suspected abuse, but a doctor concluded the marks were not from abuse. Delilah Williams pleaded guilty to first-degree felony murder and agreed to testify against her husband. Under her plea agreement, she was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Naeem Williams was convicted of murder and faced a potential death penalty, but the jury deadlocked on whether he should be executed. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. On August 25, 2015, Delilah Williams was formally sentenced, with 9 years already served counting toward her 20-year term. 5. Elsa Ehrich. Els Lieschen Frieda. Elsa Ehrich was born on March 8, 1914, in Bredereiche, Germany. Before joining the SS, she worked in a slaughterhouse. On August 15, 1940, at age 26, Ehrich voluntarily joined the Nazi concentration camp system, beginning service at Ravensbrück. In October 1942, she was transferred to Majdanek concentration camp near Lublin, Poland, where she was eventually promoted to SS Oberaufseherin, the highest-ranking female guard position overseeing the women's section. Elsa Ehrich's victims numbered in the thousands, primarily women and children imprisoned in the women's section of Majdanek. During the 34 months of Majdanek's operation, more than 79,000 prisoners were murdered at the main camp alone, with 59,000 of them being Polish Jews. Between 95,000 and 130,000 people were killed in the entire Majdanek system. On November 3, 1943, approximately 18,000 Jews were killed at Majdanek during Operation Harvest Festival, the largest single-day, single-camp massacre of the Holocaust, totaling 43,000 deaths, including 2 subcamps. As Oberaufseherin, Ehrich was directly responsible for supervising brutal treatment, selections for gas chambers, and executions. Elsa Ehrich took an active part in all major selections to the gas chambers and executions at Majdanek. She maltreated prisoners without mercy, not even sparing children. Survivor testimony described over 20 accounts of Ehrich supervising selections for gas chambers, whipping female prisoners until death, and inciting dogs against inmates. On April 5, 1944, Ehrich became Oberaufseherin at Kraków-Płaszów concentration camp, and from June 1944 to April 1945, she was assigned to Neuengamme. After the war ended in May 1945, she was arrested by British occupation authorities in Hamburg. British authorities transferred Ehrich to US custody, then she was extradited to Polish authorities. In 1948, Ehrich stood before the District Court of Lublin at the second Majdanek trials, accused of committing war crimes and crimes against humanity. The court dismissed her defense that she was merely following orders. On June 10, 1948, Elsa Ehrich was found guilty and condemned to death by hanging. She was the only female guard from Majdanek to receive a death sentence. She asked Polish President Bolesław Bierut for clemency, claiming she had a small son and wanted to atone for her guilt. The president rejected her request. Elsa Ehrich was executed by hanging on October 26, 1948, at age 34. 6. Herta Ehlert. Herta Ehlert was born on March 26, 1905, in Berlin, Germany. She worked as a saleswoman before the war. On November 15, 1939, at age 34, Ehlert was called for SS work by the Labor Exchange and began working at Ravensbrück concentration camp. In October 1942, she was moved to Majdanek camp near Lublin. She claimed she was transferred as punishment for being too nice to prisoners, not giving harsh enough punishments, and helping to feed them. However, trial evidence showed she had received a bonus and better working conditions at Majdanek. Herta Ehlert's victims were the thousands of prisoners she supervised at multiple Nazi concentration camps, including Ravensbrück, Majdanek, Kraków-Płaszów, Auschwitz, and Bergen-Belsen. Survivor Helena Nelken described Ehlert at Plazo as immensely obese, sly, vicious in character, and an absolute master in using the whip. Nelken testified that Ehlert was the overseer in charge of the kitchen who would spy on Jewish women through a small window while they worked. Once, Ehlert ordered the women to undress completely and searched each one extremely thoroughly, looking for rings, money, wristwatches, and other valuables. Ehlert served at Majdanek from October 1942 until spring 1944, during which time the camp functioned as both a labor and extermination facility. By mid-1944, she was transferred to Kraków, and SS officers there noticed she was too lenient, polite, and helpful to prisoners, so they sent her back to Ravensbrück for retraining. She later served at the Auschwitz subcamp in Rajko, Poland, overseeing slave labor groups. In February 1945, she was transferred to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. When British forces liberated Bergen-Belsen in April 1945, they arrested Ehlert. At the Belsen trial, Ehlert was asked if she had committed theft, witnessed severe beatings, and committed murder. She denied most accusations and pleaded not guilty to all charges. Despite survivor testimony about her cruelty, she was found guilty at Belsen but innocent at Auschwitz. Ehlert was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Her sentence was later reduced by 3 years. She was released early on May 7, 1953, after serving approximately 7 years. After the war, Ehlert lived under the assumed name Herta Naumann in Berlin. Herta Ehlert died in April 1997 at age 92, nearly 52 years after the war's end. Lächert, Hildegard Martha Lächert, was born on March 19, 1920, in Berlin, Germany. She trained as a nurse after abandoning a tailoring apprenticeship. She became a mother twice before the war, both children born out of wedlock. When World War II erupted in 1939, she worked in a munitions factory until April 1942, when the SS called her up. At age 22, she was sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp for training as a female guard. By October 1942, she arrived at Majdanek, the Nazis' first camp built explicitly for mass murder outside Lublin, Poland. In Majdanek, Lächert became known as Bloody Brigitte because she beat prisoners until blood appeared. Hildegard Lächert's victims were the thousands of prisoners at Majdanek and Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camps. Survivors characterized her as the worst of the worst, the cruelest guard, as beast, and as fright of the prisoners. Former prisoner Henryka Ostrowska testified, "We always said blutage about the fact that she struck until blood showed." Another survivor testified that when Lächert assigned her to wash floors, she beat her with a whip and referred to her as a piece of filth. Witnesses described her sadistic tactics, including luring small children with candy and a sweet voice before throwing them onto trucks bound for gas chambers. She also released her dog onto pregnant inmates, targeting the most vulnerable parts of their bodies, killing unborn children. During her time at Majdanek from October 1942 until spring 1944, Lächert participated in selections for gas chambers and was complicit in the murder of 1,196 prisoners, according to court records. She was disciplined by SS superiors at least 3 times, all for administrative offenses including violating curfew and losing her pistol, but never for excessive violence against prisoners, suggesting her brutality was tolerated. In August 1943, she left Majdanek and worked at Płaszów and Auschwitz-Birkenau. She fled Auschwitz in December 1944, ahead of the advancing Red Army. In July 1945, Lächert returned to Berlin, her crimes undiscovered, and worked in an American hospital until October. On March 30, 1946, Austrian police arrested her and extradited her to Poland. In November 1947, she appeared at the Kraków Auschwitz trial with 40 other SS guards. she was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She was released in December 1950 under amnesty after serving approximately 10 years. 1975 until June 1981, she stood trial again in Dusseldorf for her crimes at Majdanek. The court sentenced her to 12 years imprisonment, but she never served this time as her previous Polish imprisonment and custody time were credited. Hildegard Lächert died in Berlin in 1995 at age 75, having lived 50 years after her crimes. 7 women, 7 different wars, 7 paths that led from service to prison cells, or in some cases, to the gallows. From Diane Zamora's jealous rage in 1995 to Kemia Hassel's calculated greed in 2018, we see how modern soldiers betrayed not just their victims, but the uniform they wore. Ivette Gonzalez Davila's obsession and Delilah Williams' complicity in horrific child abuse remind us that evil wears many faces. And then there were the Nazi guards, Elsa Ehrich, Herta Ehlert, and Hildegard Lächert, whose crimes against humanity during the Holocaust remain among the darkest chapters in history. Some faced justice swiftly with execution or life sentences. Others, like Ehlert and Lächert, were released early and lived decades as free women despite their atrocities. These cases span 80 years, from the gas chambers of Majdanek to the military bases of Fort Stewart. Yet they share common threads: betrayal, violence, and the devastating consequences when those entrusted with power choose evil. If this video opened your eyes to these forgotten stories, smash that like button, share it with someone who loves true crime, and don't forget to drop your location and time in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives into history's most shocking cases. Until next time, stay safe out there.